There is no denying that we are living in frightening times. From day one of his second term in office, US President Donald J. Trump has been doing his utmost to monger those fears with all kinds of outlandish threats.
China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
It is time to target just how dangerous are Trump's stated objectives, and more importantly, how best to counter his fear-mongering. Given that Trump holds the reins of the world's greatest superpower, even his most glib and offhand threats therefore need to be addressed with diplomacy and tact. They also need to be addressed with some hard truths. Namely, the majority of the facts upon which Trump is relying to justify his threats are either exaggerated, misleading, or straight-up lies. Last Thursday, Trump reiterated his threat to slap a 25% tariff on all Canadian imports as early as February 1st.
Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years, and it's not fair that we should have a $200 billion or $250 billion deficit.
In response to Trump's claim, TD Bank economists released their own study, which illustrates that the current U.S. trade deficit is actually only $45 billion US. That is still a sizable difference. But what the TD economists highlight is the fact that all of that deficit is due to the U.S. purchasing of Canadian energy in the form of oil and gas. If one removes the energy purchases from the equation, that deficit is reversed. In terms of non-energy trade, the U.S. enjoys a nearly $60 billion US trade surplus with Canada. Even before he was inaugurated, Trump began threatening to turn Canada into the 51st state, and he went so far as to endorse hockey legend Wayne Gretzky.
He said, well, am I going to run for prime minister or governor? You tell me. I said, I don't know, let's make it governor. I like it better.
To achieve this aim, Trump told reporters that military force would not be necessary and that instead he will use economic pressure to force Canada into submission. That must have come as a relief to Canada's Chief of the Defence Staff, General Jenny Carignan, as she would have been hard-pressed to come up with a list of options for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the event that Trump suggested a military invasion. But I digress. One nation that is facing the reality of a U.S. invasion is Panama. Trump has announced repeatedly his intention to reclaim the Panama Canal for the U.S., and in direct response to a reporter's question, he did not rule out the use of military force to achieve that goal. Trump's justification for violating the rules-based international order is that the Chinese government is now operating the Panama Canal. The truth is that way back in 1996, Panama contracted a Hong Kong-based company, Hutcheson Woa, to operate 2 ports along the canal on behalf of the Panamanian government. In 1999, the U.S. State Department responded to Panama's awarding of the contract to Hutcheson Woa. U.S. officials concluded after extensive research that they had, quote, not uncovered any evidence to support a conclusion that the People's Republic of China, the PRC, will be in a position to control canal operations, end quote. Last Wednesday, in response to Trump's allegation, Mao Ning, the PRC's foreign ministry spokesperson, clarified, quote, China does not participate in the management and operation of the canal and has never interfered in the affairs of the canal, end quote. For the record, any future Trump invasion of Panama already has a foothold. The U.S. still have over 4,000 military personnel stationed in Panama at a U.S. Navy repair facility on the Pacific coast.
The United States, think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal.
That number is a very bold exaggeration, to say the least. The entire death toll during the U.S. construction phase was 5,609. But of these, 4,290 of those killed were mostly poorly paid laborers from the Caribbean islands. Trump also says the U.S. needs to obtain Greenland, as it is strategically important for the defense of the USA. Trump questioned whether Denmark, a NATO ally, actually has any legal claim to the territory. And he also did not rule out using military force to achieve his goal.
Dear President Trump, Greenland has been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated part of our country. It is not for sale. Let me put it in words you might understand. Mr. Trump, f*** off.
Yet the U.S. already have a military base in Greenland as part of a defense agreement forced upon the Danish dating back to the Second World War. That U.S. base is now called Space Base Pituffik, formerly U.S. Air Force Base Thule. Royal Canadian Air Force cargo planes have routinely used this airbase when resupplying CFS Alert during the annual Operation Box Top. Perhaps the most effective way to alleviate those fears which Trump is trying to stoke would be to simply provide facts and context to his wild claims. The US does not need to invade either Panama or Greenland. Their troops are already there. As for Canada being a bad neighbor that Trump claims treats America poorly, we all know that simply isn't true. This has been On Target. I'm Scott Taylor.